Hey everyone, I'm Laura, this is Foul Mouths, and today we're going to talk a little bit about owning ducks versus owning chickens and which one I personally prefer. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit about the care of both of those birds, stay tuned. Alright, so let's knock out the most shallow category first, okay, and that's going to be appearance. In my opinion, I don't think, honestly, there's anything cuter in the world than a brand new fluffy baby duckling. It is seriously the cutest animal out there. And chicks are not cute. They're just not as cute as duckling. That's Belina. She doesn't like this opinion. Alright, so cuteness of baby birds aside, there is a way bigger variety of different looks of birds with chickens than there is with ducks. Ducks, there's a handful of different breeds, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous. My personal favorite, just as far as looks go, is probably a Welsh Harlequin. They're a very, very beautiful bird. My favorite breed all around those, the Cayuga or Cayuga, depending on who you ask. It's like a black bird. They lay black eggs, and they have these beautiful iridescent feathers. But other than that, you kind of have your whites, your browns, your blues. Not a whole lot in between. With chickens, you have like the speckled Sussex, which just have these gorgeous spotted feather patterns. There's like the Easter eggers, which are a mixed breed, but when you mix ducks, you kind of get more or less the same of what you already have, or maybe they start looking like other breeds. But with Easter eggers, there's like an endless variety of the color patterns you can get. So if you want something that's going to be a little more colorful of a display in your yard, chickens might be the way to go. All right, let me put a little disclaimer out there when it comes to caring for birds. We have had chickens for not even a year yet. We started with 3 and 1 died, which I will get to that a little bit later in this video. And the ducks, we started out with 50 like 8 years ago, or maybe closer to 7 years ago. But in any case, oh, the dog just jumped over the fence. I'll have to introduce you to her at some point. She's a new addition since I've been on hiatus. Anywho, so we have a lot more experience with the ducks in this time period, obviously. We do have quite a few chickens right now, but most of them have come into our lives over the past few months. So, when it comes to care so far, what I've noticed is that I feel like the ducks are a little higher maintenance only because of the water situation. But here's the thing. So with ducks, you can get a pool, you can put the pool out, and they're going to play in that pool, but they're also filthy. They're going to muck up the water with all their little ducky, I don't know, their ducky excrement. Let's just call it. Let's call it what it is. Chickens don't really do that. They don't mess their own water up. If you're going to have both, you need to have a source of water that's clean for the chickens. The ducks don't care. They have a built-in filtration system in their mouth. That's why they get their primary source of water from ponds and things like that, or out of their own duck water. They are built for that, so it's not a big deal. With chickens, to keep them healthy, they need their own source. You can get a water that has like a little, like a nipple on it, basically. That'll give them water that they can peck out and get their water out, or you can do what we do, which is just get their own water up on a shelf that has clean water in it that the ducks can't access, because chickens can get up a little higher, the ducks cannot. That's something else you need to consider as far as their housings and things like that, is that the ducks can fly. I'm sorry, the chickens can fly. So the chickens are going to be able to get up onto shelves and things like that. So if you're trying to store their food up above them, you can't do it with chickens. You can do it with ducks, though. So that is something to consider. As far as their food intake, they're more or less the same. For us, we free range them most of the day anyway, as you can see. We put up a little fence that was trying to keep predators out, and it's worked just fine for that. But the ducks and the chickens have figured out how to get over it. There's parts of the fence that have drooped down over time, and now they all can get out, including the geese. But anywho, that's another matter entirely. So they forage all day, all the birds forage all day, and then they come in at night and they all eat basically the same food. Your ducks, you're going to feed them. Once they're adults, they're going to eat the same food that your chickens are. So and they're eating roughly about the same amount, especially if they're out all day foraging. So as far as food intake goes, it's really not a big difference. They're pretty much even right there. It's just a matter of the water. Do you want a pool that you have to empty out at least once a day and refill? And do you have a spot for that pool? Because when you dump the water out, it's going to make everything around the pool a mucky mess. And also the ducks like to drill into the ground and go hunting for bugs and things like that. Or do you want a water that you're going to have to clean out every day, keep up above the ground? You need a special water for that. And I don't know, it's really a matter of preference. To me, it's more or less even. I don't like the pools as far as what a mess they make, but I also, I don't know, it's like, to me, it's much easier to just fill up a pool than it is to take the water out and have to clean the inside of the water out too, because those things get pretty gross, especially if they're out in the sun. They grow algae and stuff inside of it. So I don't know, that one is pretty much your preference. Food, I'm going to call them even. Water, which do you prefer? So we touched briefly about housing for ducks versus chickens as far as the food. We need to keep the food away from the chickens or they're going to get into it. Also true for bedding. I found that out. I had a bale of straw for the housing, like the bedding in the floor of the coop. And the birds have found it and have made a little nest out of it and have been laying eggs in it. And they will sit in it and they will poop in it and all sorts of fun stuff. So you need to kind of have a separate area to store your food and your straw if you're going to have chickens. Ducks, it's way easier. You just need a shelf. They can't fly up very high at all, and they don't really try to either. So that's pretty convenient. Also, what makes chickens a little more complicated is the fact that they like to roost. So if you can't put roosting bars or something inside of your coop for them to sit on, they'll find another place to sit. For us, sometimes it's in the trees or on the fence or on the little pallet wood and things like that. We do still have bars inside of our coop, but they have their preference, and since we do leave everybody out at night into the run, not out here in the yard, but in the fenced off run-in, they do have access to that. They go where they want to go, and most of the time it's not inside the coop. But anywho, the ducks are a lot more about it. They'll lay wherever they want. As long as there's a little cluster of them together, they're happy. So as far as housing goes, the chickens are going to get a little more complicated. What else can I say about that? The ducks should have access to water if you can swing it at least all during the day. If you take it away at night, that's fine. We do give our ducks access to water 24 hours a day. But that's something you want to consider. Are you going to be able to come out every morning and change their water or refill it or fill it up for the first time for the day and empty it every single night? Do you have a place for that water? Is it okay if you just dump it on the ground versus having to scoop it in buckets and take it somewhere? It does make it nice when you do have a garden, when it's gardening season, to be able to scoop up that water and go put it into your garden because it's got good nutrient in it for the plants. But it's a lot of extra work, so those are just some things to consider as far as setting up a space for them. As far as actual square footage goes, they are pretty similar on their space. You should have, I would say, maybe on the ground level, like 4 to 6 square feet per bird, ideally. But if you have a higher density amount of birds in your flock and in your living space, you're just gonna have to clean it more often. That's basically that. All right, so next we're gonna talk about health. And as I said, I haven't had the chickens that long. I've had the ducks for a long time, so I take this category with a grain of salt. This is purely anecdotal, but in my experience, the ducks have been healthier. And I say that because since we've gotten the chickens, which was last fall, which it hasn't even been a year, we've had a couple times now come out to spontaneously dead chickens in the run-in, and my understanding is that's not totally uncommon, that they'll just pick something up and it'll kill them quick, and sometimes you have no clue what the heck it was, and that's happened to us twice now. But the rest of the flock has been healthy, so that's been good. It's just not something that we've seen with the ducks. I think it happened one time in all these years we've had ducks. One time that I came out to a duck that was deceased. And, that we couldn't figure out why or anything like that. We've had predator issues, and I'll touch on that next. But as far as just health-wise go, that's pretty much it. We've had some ducks here and there have like a limp or something, and a lot of people are quick to jump to bumblefoot, but that hasn't been the case. We've never had bumblefoot here on our farm, but we have had where they'll have like a swollen leg, and then in a couple days, we monitor it, in a couple days it resolves itself. That's been the worst of our personal experience. I'm not saying that ducks are the healthiest breed that there ever is, but I am telling you that in our experience, they've been generally very healthy birds and hardy birds to have. So that's about all I can say on the subject for now until we get a little more experience with chickens. But if you want a good hardy bird that's known to be pretty hardy, the ducks kind of win that category. Okay, let's talk about predators, because this has been a crazy year with predators, okay? We've had predators on and off for a really long time. But since we got the increase in chickens, I am telling y'all, the predators have come out of the woodwork. I've seen coyotes come through our woods this year. We had foxes, we've had owls, and we've had hawks. And we have not had half of those when we just had the ducks. With the ducks, we had hawks overhead, but we never saw any hawk attacks. And we did have a fox that was picking off our ducks one by one when they were free ranging. Once we got them behind a fence, that stopped. The chickens, OMG, we have had everything under the sun, it feels like. We had the fox. The fox came through and picked off a few of our chickens earlier in the year. We had a couple of leghorns, which are these white birds that lay a lot of eggs. And we had 3 of them. Fox got all 3 of those. So once you got the fence up, the fox wasn't an issue anymore. As I said, I have seen the coyote pass through in our woods, but I haven't seen it attack anything. So I'm hoping it was just kind of a one-time thing. I did chase it off one time and I haven't seen it since. So hopefully that's the end of that. But we had a hawk that was coming in, and we had juvenile chickens that we had raised from little baby chicks, which just frustrates me because I have all this time and effort into these birds, finally get them out with the other birds, and then a predator comes and eats all of them. I think we lost 9 of them to this hawk, and it was caught red-handed. My son saw it outside. It was actually right in these very trees right behind me. Came down, killed one of my birds, and my son spooked it, and it dropped the bird and flew back up into the tree. So we saw the hawk, we found the dead bird, and this was like, I don't know what number of death that was. That was probably the 9th or the 10th bird. And from then we scared it off. We kept the birds in our like run-in for a while, and it seemed that the hawk had moved on. We weren't having problems, and then suddenly just started back up again. But instead of the birds going missing, we were finding headless birds in our duck pen over here. We'd come out in the morning and there would just be bodies with no heads. And this was happening, which, by the way, my poor son, because he was finding them, but he's older and, you know, he understands farm life now. I wouldn't let the younger ones look because I didn't want him to see it because it was not pretty. But it's farm life for you. Predators are going to do what they're going to do. So we ended up getting this guy over here. Hopefully you can see we have a fake owl. And then what's really seemed to work is this right here, which is a light that is a motion sensor. So if an owl, because we caught it one night after I suspected it was an owl because I did some research and found out that apparently owls like chicken heads. Anywho, one night we decided to just like keep an eye out, just peek outside at nighttime and see if there was anything there. And lo and behold, he was just chilling right on top of the coop. And so we scared him off, and then we got this motion light and put it up there right where we saw him sitting. And since then we haven't had any incidences. That was several weeks ago. Up until this past week, something's been coming at night and taking our ducklings. So now we're locking the ducklings up at night, and we haven't lost any more of those, but it's just an ongoing battle. But I do truly feel that it has been infinitely worse with the chickens than it's ever been with the ducks. So that is something to consider. If you have a lot of predation in your area, you're going to want a real secure coop. You're going to want some fenced in areas. For if you want them to free range, you got to put up the fences, because that's been our biggest issue. So hands down, without a doubt, the ducks have been way better with predation than the chickens, but they are also not without it. But it's been easier with them than it has with the chickens. All right, let's talk about eggs, because it's always the first question whenever you tell anybody you have ducks, is they want to know about the eggs. So chickens and ducks, they both have edible eggs. For the most part, you can use them the same way. And it's really here is going to be a preference thing. My husband definitely prefers duck eggs. I prefer the chicken eggs, but only just recently. When we started eating the duck eggs, I really liked them. I liked a good soft boiled duck egg. It was like, I was in heaven with that. But my taste has changed, I guess, and I'm just not feeling it as much. And I really like the more, not like ultra delicate, but slightly more delicate flavor of the chicken egg versus the duck egg. Duck eggs are a very intense egg flavor. So if you like egg flavor, you might really like a duck egg. As far as cooking goes with them, you kind of have to take care not to cook a duck egg too quickly and too high heat, or it's going to end up a little rubbery. But if you cook it right, it's pretty much the same as a chicken egg. What I did discover recently is that if you're trying to beat an egg to like form stiff peaks, you're trying to make like a meringue or something like that, duck eggs aren't going to work. I did this whole experiment recently because we've been eating keto in our house primarily, and I was trying to make a keto dessert that had to have the eggs fluffed up, and the duck eggs would not do it. They just would not. So what I learned is that duck eggs don't fluff up for you when you beat them. Only chicken eggs do. So if that's important for you in cooking, there you go. However, I have heard, and I've never done a side-by-side comparison, but I've heard that duck eggs are ultimately the best when it comes to baking, like inside of baked goods like cakes and things like that. Also, I did make, what is it, cloud bread? Pillow bread? Something like that, where eggs are a huge portion of the ingredient list. It's like 6 eggs in this thing. And I discovered that the duck eggs don't rise as much as the chicken eggs do. So that's just something to keep in mind as far as the edibility of their eggs goes. I think that pretty much covers everything. Just as far as overall, which would I have? If I had to take everything down to just one bird here on the farm, it's a tough call, but I think I would keep the chickens. My husband would keep the ducks without a doubt. So we're very split on the subject, but just personally, I just kind of like the chickens. I think they're a little friendlier. The ducks have never warmed up to us. It doesn't matter that it's been years of us feeding them. They have never warmed up to us. If we start walking up to them, they'll walk the other direction. The only time they come close is if you have food. The chickens, they do keep their distance to a degree, but there's still times where they'll just come up to you, or they're just standing in the yard looking around and you can walk up to them and pet them or pick them up. So I like a more interactive pet overall. Also, they're just kind of funny little things, but I will say that the ducks are a lot more hilarious to just watch and observe. They have like kind of pretty goofy personalities, but the chickens have decent personalities too. So really, just all in all, it's really up to your own personal preference. Personally, I like the chickens. My husband likes the ducks. So it looks like for now we're keeping both. All right, tell me what you thought of this video. If you have anything to add, or if you have your own opinion on the subject, please leave it in the comments below. I will be reading them, and I'm sure other people would love to get some opinions too. So leave a comment below, like this video if you found it informative or at least entertaining, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much, you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.